What's up guys, Metal571 here, and today we're going to be talking about the Sennheiser HD599. This headphone is now Sennheiser claims it is a near audiophile, which I think is kind of a funny term. Don't sell yourself short. It's an audiophile open back headphone, 50 ohms, and it uses dynamic drivers. That's all there is to it, nothing fancy, no planar magnetic stuff going on here. So the build quality, as we always do first, I mean, you can kind of hear, that's pretty good. I mean, even from something that's using so much plastic, there seems to be, actually, I don't know if I don't think the headband is metal, but I could be wrong. It might be metal, but it looks like just really hard plastic. And you've got leather on the headband here, which is good. Probably not genuine, probably pleather at this price point. I don't know for sure about that either. They don't list that on the website that I could find. You have velour ear pads, talk about comfort in a second. But really it's a very plasticky build, but it's a very solid build. But I still wouldn't sit on it. I still wouldn't. I'm not sure if it would survive the crush test. This is basically a HD598 that's been refreshed. Slight differences in the sound. I'll talk about that in a minute. But again, like I said, we're going over the build quality. The other thing that's nice is you can find replacement parts for this pretty easily through Sennheiser, especially the pads. They tend to wear out, easy to replace. Actually, you know what? I'll take one off right now just to show you how easy it is. Done. I'm serious. That's all you do. All you do is you just pull them right off and they just snap. And then you just snap them right back in, and that's it. So that's what's great about Sennheisers. They're very easy to repair if you had to. I just removed and replaced the pad in like 5 seconds there. Maybe not all the way, but almost. Anyway, also I wish that the L and R markings were a little bit more obvious. They're actually up here. I find that this is not unique to this headphone, just something that I thought of. And a lot of new headphones coming out have R or L written right in here in the ear pad opening, which is nice. This does not. It's more traditional. Another thing I'm missing here that I have on some other headphones is usually they have them numbered. Well, not usually, but sometimes there are numbers. So you can, if you're really OCD like me, trust me, you're not the only person out there who is that OCD, but I like to have my headband set to the same number of clicks on each side, so I shouldn't have to count them. You have to count them on this one. Other than that though, build is good for the price. I think they could have used more metal, but if they used more metal then it would have been a lot heavier, and that drastically would have affected the comfort, which by the way is amazing. I mean, obviously this is a Sennheiser with velour pads and it weighs almost nothing and it clamps almost none. What do you expect? Crap? You're not going to get crap here. This is Sennheiser we're talking about. And maybe this might be the most comfortable in the price range. I mean, right up there. Some used DT880s can go for around this price as well. Maybe sometimes new, under $200. You can find DT880s, and I would say is probably a tie with these. Man, it's just so easy to wear these for like forever. It's a combination, like I said, the weight is very low, the clamp is low, but they stay on your head well. The pads are super soft, there's plenty of room in the ear pad, and they're just like form-fitting. They're great. And actually, this is a little bit more comfortable than the HD600 and 650 right out of the box, because, which you can see right there, because the clamp is a lot lower on these than the 600 and 650 right out of the box. And that's something that does break in over time with the HD600, but because the clamp is kind of high when you first get them, the HD600 will actually be less comfortable than this is. You just take that out of the box, put it on your head, and you can just listen to it forever. That is if you like the sound, which we'll go over now. So as we always do, what's the bass like on this headphone? Impressive, in a word. For the price here and the fact this is an open back headphone, the roll-off is much better controlled than average. And it isn't just me. Artings has measured this headphone, not Inner Fidelity yet. So I used some of their measurements as a reference here, but you really can hear that these do dig deeper than the, for example, I have a 598 modded 558 here from a friend of mine that I compared against, and it's clear that this digs lower than that does. Now, that's not to say that it's going to beat the HD600 or 650 in extension, But I'd say it's more on par than it's ever been. I can't tell you exactly for sure what frequency this is cutting off at, of course, but you notice immediately swapping between, and you'll notice this if you're upgrading from a 598 or a 558 to the 599, that the bass does extend further, which is great. And I'm really impressed with that. That's probably the biggest improvement here on the sound. Other than that, the bass is relatively neutral. I mean, I hate using that word, but except, as usual, there are exceptions. The upper bass has a bunch of warmth here. Arting says it's about 5 dB above their target. I EQ'd 200 Hz down by around 3 dB. My EQ, you'll find in the description as always, if you want to try it out to make the headphones sound more neutral to my taste anyway. That's just me. And I'll continue to explain why I EQ'd it the way I have. Well, first of all, the upper bass here, you're supposed to have a bit of I don't know what to call it, a dip in the response as you go towards the bass, because relative to the low mids and the upper mids. See my video on neutrality for kind of the curves that I tend to follow on frequency response for sounding right. But even being used to the other headphones I have, which are tuned much more carefully through EQ and whatnot, this headphone in the upper bass sounds a bit boomy, and it doesn't really interfere that much. It just adds a lot of warmth to the bass where it normally wouldn't be. And it's something that you can correct with EQ if it bothers you. I mean, it's not even that bad, though. Like I said, it's at the most maybe 5 dB off, which is, deal breaker for some audiophiles, not so much for others. This is a subjective hobby, man. I'm just telling you what's there. Now, the mid-range, though, is the timbre is just about spot on. However, I think that the mids are a little aggressive. I've kind of always felt this way about 598s and 558s. So, it's kind of a love it or hate it thing. The mids are a little bit forward of neutral, in my opinion. But some people really like that. This ain't no grado. It doesn't have massive 2K peaks of like 8 dB. That's stupid. These has the right shape, like just the right shape of the mid-range, but it's a little bit aggressive. So things like electric guitars will sound a little bit more forward than sometimes they would on other headphones that I find more neutral. But again, you can EQ it if you don't mind it. You can leave it. If it's a little aggressive, it EQs out perfectly, especially because it's only about 2 or 3 dB, in my opinion, too hot. Now the treble. Again, the timbre is right on, but there's a bit of a peak around somewhere between 8 and 10K. Sounds like it's somewhere between 3 and 5 dB too high. So these are like really typical spots for headphones to be boomy or boomy. No, these are really typical spots for headphones to have a little bit of extra peakiness. And it's kind of the Sennheiser house sound here to have slightly forward mids and the treble to be glisteningly bright. Now, there is still some grain throughout this headphone, and it's what really separates it from the HD600. I talked about this when I reviewed the 558 along with the 598 CS and the HD600 in a different video already. And but I think for under $200 and especially under $150, this is a great value for the money. But it's not perfect because all these regions I'm talking about, they have these little bumps. But as a whole, the headphone is really nice. It's just really great sounding in general. I think most people putting them on will have one of two reactions. Wow, this is really clear. Or where in the world's all my beat space? It's probably one of those. So now that we got the bass, mids, and treble, now we're going to talk about the soundstage. Soundstage here, classically, just like a 598, it's wider than the HD600. Yes, that's true. And it still maintains very good imaging, which makes this fantastic for gaming. Absolutely recommend this headphone. It is so obvious how much better this is than the SHP 9500 for gaming. I don't know why people are roasting me over that video because I don't know, side by side, this is what I would buy for about $150 for gaming. No questions asked, as long as you can use an open back, obviously. Isolation, yeah, there's no isolation here. Do not buy this headphone and wear it on a train next to people. Do not buy this headphone and wear it in a library. Buy this headphone to wear in your own listening room, in your single dorm, at home, in your own in a room like this with a door that shuts so you don't bother the crap out of everybody. That's what you buy this for. It's an open back. It leaks like crazy, just like a laptop, about volume of sound coming out of this all the time. That's just the nature of the beast. And that's where the sound quality comes from. So for genre pairing, I think that this is particularly cool when you pair it with some genres, especially anything derived from rock. And I think that's cool because as a guitarist, obviously, I think guitars sound really nice through this thing. They're not perfectly neutral, but I think the colorations are cool. Like, the upper bass has some warmth, so you get the bass notes of the guitar, and then in the upper mids you have a little aggressive attack, as long as you don't listen super loudly, or even if you do, maybe you do like that. If this is a great headphone in that its colorations are somewhat subtle, especially to an untrained ear. These will sound very, very neutral. But to somebody like me, I can hear those subtle differences, and they add up to a great experience. You've got the upper bass bump, you have the upper mids being slightly forward of neutral, and then you have the 10K peak, which adds a nice shimmer to the well recorded, I should say, drums. And you have that all together, and it's great. It's fantastic. Now you can EQ it further to match your after my EQ, this works with every genre. And that's really cool because electronic music heads normally would not be so happy about open backs, especially dynamic open backs, I should say, because the bass tends to roll off quite a bit. But you can fill in the bass region of these as long as you don't go crazy and aren't a super bass head, and they will produce those frequencies down to maybe like 30 hertz or so, which is awesome. So that's punching above the price point for $150, I would say. Now, amp needs, and something that should be noted about this headphone is that, like the classic 598, as far as I can tell, these are using the same drivers, maybe slightly tuned differently, but they sound very similar to the 598. And so, of course, these are very sensitive to output impedance from the amplifier. If you plug these into a source with a high output impedance, the bass will go crazy, out of control, and really bloomy and not sound right at all. So you can plug this to almost any source you want, but if they have a high output impedance, you're going to have a problem. That's just the way these are. But they'll run out of a phone. They're not very hard to drive. But you will get the best sound out of them if you plug them into a properly designed amplifier. And that's about it, except for my conclusions on this headphone, which is I think this is a great replacement. I've always liked the 598 and 558 because it gives you a nice sound to work with, which has good detail, good imaging, good soundstage, amazing comfort, and a tweakable frequency response that isn't overly aggressive in any specific way. And it's just, if I had one headphone to recommend to people for an open back to start out the hobby with, this would be it. Of course, this is the new one. Classically, the pricing goes something like the 558 is about $100, the 598 is about $150. They've jacked them up a bit right now as of this video. The 579, which is kind of like a 558, I believe, is running around 160, 170, and this 599 is about 200. I think that's a little bit pricey, but when the 590 goes out of production, and I'm hoping that the 599 will come down to around 150, and the 579 would come down below that, maybe 120 at least, then these become an instant buy, in my opinion. If you're looking for a starting open back and you don't know what you want, there you go. And as usual, I missed the accessories again, so we'll talk about that really quick. It comes with a locking cable. These cables are cool because you put them in, and then you twist them, and then they stay in. And then you just untwist them. Oops, I didn't even put that in all the way. And then they come right back out. So they don't fall out when you pull them. They're really nice. This one is long and has a 1/4 inch, obviously designed to be used with, your favorite amp. This one is strangely a portable cable. Yeah, don't use this on a bus. This is an open back, like I said, but they give you it anyway with a 3.5 millimeter ending, and then they give you a 1/4 inch to 3.5 millimeter adapter. So that all comes in the box, and that's about it. So that's a Sennheiser HD599. I want to thank Sennheiser for sending me this for review. It's a great option if you're looking to get into the hobby for the first time, and actually it's kind of my reference for under $200 open backs. So there you have it, guys. I'll see you in the next video.